2020 was obviously a brutal year for airlines and airline employees, with daily passenger traffic here in the U.S. still off by about 50% versus last year's levels. But many are hoping 2021 can bring a sharp rebound in travel due to pent-up demand for getaways. So if that's the case, which airline should investors be betting on? Here to answer all of that for us is Cowen Senior Research Analyst Helane Becker. Good to be chatting with you again, Helane. Let's start by putting it all into context here, though, shall we? I mean, when we talk about North American airlines, profits forecasted to be down nearly $46 billion in 2020. That's the end number here this year, according to the International Air Transport Association. Next year, they're saying that that's going to drop to a decrease of $11 billion. So if that's going to happen, what kind of rebound in travel would you expect to see? And is that perhaps a bit too optimistic?
Well, thanks for having me again on the show, Zach. It's nice to see you. I think that we're going to see a 40 to 50% decline in traffic in 2021. In fact, if you think about the numbers that we're seeing come through TSA over the last week and a half, it's actually about 1.1 a day. That's probably pretty close to 95% of leisure traffic and where it should be on a normal year or normal day. What we're missing is business traffic, which is still down 85 to 90%, and international, which is down 90 to 95%. The only people that seem to be traveling internationally are the people who need to travel. And especially now with the second strain of the virus, we're seeing borders close again. This is just the longer it takes us to get out of this, the longer the recovery.
And the key question, of course, is who's best positioned to ride out at least a bit more of this downturn over the next few quarters or so. Delta Airlines, one that we've heard a number of our guests mention, but you've also got American Airlines outperform rating there. I'm curious what the thesis is behind that. And ultimately, as an investor, how do you sort of decipher these airlines when the overall sector is still facing a very much uphill battle?
Yes, very good. Those are very good questions, and I spend my life thinking about it. So here's how I think about American. It's our contrarian idea. Our best idea for 2021 is Southwest Airlines. It's got a strong balance sheet. It's got a great management team. They're not going to have to furlough people. They're growing in an environment where the rest of the industry is not. And so that would be our top pick. But it's becoming a crowded trade. And then when you think about American, here's our thought there. First of all, they were very quick to reach an agreement with their pilots on furloughs and early retirements so that they can put themselves in a position to win the recovery. The idea is to try to keep as many pilots on staff as possible so that when things do improve, they can, no pun intended, but take off again. One of the things to think about, especially with pilots, is it takes about a year to bring them back from a furlough. So the idea is to try to keep as many as possible on staff. And then second, you've got a lot of pilots between the ages of 62 and 65 that are intending to retire over the next couple of years. And the idea for American was to bring those forward. So they did a lot of that in an effort to keep more junior pilots. So as a result, while the absolute wage rates are likely to go up over the next few years, the average should come down because the percentage of people that are with the company less than 10 years will exceed the percentage of people with the company more. And then the third thing to think about is the balance sheet. Now, it's one of the more stressed balance sheets. We've heard every one of your guests who've been on talking about airlines talk about the balance sheet. But, the thing to think about is they don't have any debt due until June of 2022. They've already paid back their 364-day loan that would have been due in March. They've got the money from the government that will get them through 2021. And they're already seeing recovery in some of their markets. They're seeing load factors that are kind of in the 60-65% range. In some cases over the past week and a half, it's been 85%. So that's put them in a position where they're actually cash flow break even. Obviously not for the whole quarter, but we're getting, I think mid of 2021, they should be there.
So, I mean, it sounds like Southwest top pick, American another one to consider here. When we talk about the added benefit of another $15 billion in funding in the latest package that came through here, of course, that's on top of what you were talking about there in the CARES Act. But one of the headwinds that I think a few people have been raising is the idea of restricted travel, or maybe this idea of travel passports for people who have been vaccinated. Our doctor guest today was just talking about how many Americans might not want to actually get vaccinated. Is that something that you're seeing as a possibility among the airlines, maybe weighing the idea of checking before people could fly again, or what are some of those other headwinds that you might see play out?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. People are uncomfortable, sharing that kind of information. But on the other hand, I would say we got used to taking our shoes off. We got used to metal detectors. We got used to taking our belts off, our coats off, our toiletries out of the bag. This is just another thing we might have to get used to doing if we want to travel freely. And we should want to take the vaccine. The people who are taking it have proven that so far that it seems to be, safe. I heard the doctor speak about how he had no side effects. I can't wait to get mine. But Zach, it's no different than any other flu vaccine. I mean, obviously it is different, but it's not different from an annual flu vaccine when only 40% of the people take that. So the idea that a lot of people would be reluctant to take this vaccine is not surprising, but that may be what needs to happen in an effort for people to get back to what I would call, normal life, although I suppose this is our new normal for a while. I'm sorry?
I was going to say that the new normal is probably a more accurate description. No question, even when we start flying again, things are going to be a little different than they were pre-pandemic. Helane, it's good to talk to you today. Helane Becker, Senior Research Analyst at Cowen. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.